Let's talk now more about those movements with Brian Thomas, Portfolio Manager at Laurium Capital. Brian, thank you so much for joining us. Family favourite restaurant Spur sales grew nearly 25%, and the other restaurants in the Spur group also showed growth. Consumers obviously still have disposable income to visit restaurants.
Yes, I think it was actually a very good set of numbers out of Spur. Although they did slow a little bit in the second half. So the numbers that you're quoting are for the full year. In the second half, things weren't quite as good. The Spur group did only 15% growth, and the Spur itself 17% growth in the second half. So there has been a bit of a slowing as the consumer has feel the pinch of higher inflation. But I think that Spur's also been helped by load shedding in some perverse way, in that if people aren't able to eat at home, Spur has basically provided a facility for them to go to in load shedding and get a good meal. So I think they've really reaped the rewards of making their investment in proofing their stores for load shedding. So a good set of numbers by them, and the market liked it. The stock up handsomely today.
So one of the country's biggest platinum producers, Impala Platinum, expects earnings to be 20% lower. This because of the depreciation of the rand and the drop in commodity prices. But there's also been some infrastructure-related issues that they don't really have much say over.
Yeah, so actually the mine production from Impala was pretty good. It was up 3% year on year, and actually the last couple of quarters have shown good momentum. So that's pulling the minerals out of the ground. Where they don't have as much control is in their refining process. So when we have load shedding, they are forced to curtail the refining that they do of the minerals that they pull out of the ground. What that's meant is that their sales for the year were lower than expected. So sales volumes down 6%, and that's in an environment where you've got the costs of production quite a lot higher, and your rand basket price of the 3 PGM metals that they pull out of the ground down 10% year on year. So when you combine lower sales and higher costs, you end up with a tough operating position at the earnings level.
So then the latest Big Mac index from The Economist, and that's where they take different prices of Big Macs in different countries, shows that the rand is nearly 50% undervalued. What does this mean?
So it's a measure called purchasing power parity is the technical term for it. And what it does is it says, what does a burger cost in Cape Town or Johannesburg? And I think it's roughly 50 rand. At least that's what my son told me it was. And if you look at what it costs in the US, it's about $5.60. So you can divide the 50 rand by the $5.60 to get you to a figure of around 9 rand to the dollar, is effectively what the exchange rate would be if the Big Mac burger cost you the same in both places. So what it's indicating is that there is potential for the rand to strengthen from here, and that there are a bunch of idiosyncratic factors that have caused it to weaken. In fact, there have been a couple of reports out by some of the more renowned investment banks on Wall Street that are forecasting the rand to be at 14 to the dollar in 2026. It seems like a long way away from where I'm sitting at the moment, but there are some that are more bullish out there.
Well, let's take a look at the performance of the rand today. It's traveling here around the levels 18 rand 70. That's a lot weaker than it was last week, especially the week before even. What are we looking at the moment as to why the rand is not performing at its optimal level?
It's a combination of factors. One of the big factors is that actually the dollar has got quite a bit stronger against a basket of currencies, including the rand. So it's not just rand weakness, there's also some dollar strength that has come into the equation. And then I think there are a few concerns that are starting to mount around our terms of trade. We talked about the platinum prices a little bit earlier. With platinum prices weaker, with us exporting less platinum, that impacts on the exchange rate in the long term. So there are a couple of those things that are impacting the rand at the moment on an idiosyncratic basis.
Thank you so much. That was Brian Thomas, Portfolio Manager at Laurium Capital.